Over time, we've discovered innumerable historic innovations that still exist as puzzles that remain unsolved today. For instance, you may be shocked to hear that people previously lived in the distant past had access to nanotechnology. Additionally, they created the seismograph hundreds of years prior to the development of the modern human's first of its kind. Furthermore, they even knew how to fly with napalm and machinery. Each of these innovations were really amazing, and they still confound contemporary experts. In this video, we will examine various of the most astounding ancient discoveries and relics that are still veiled in mystery. However, initially, remember to subscribe and like so you can receive our notifications, team. The Sakai Human Living Stones. First up, Sakai's Living Stones Human. Situated outside the Peruvian city of Cusco, is the imposing collection of fortresses Sumerian. This was constructed by the Incas, a construction with a dry stone wall method from the 15th century. Initially, you might assume there is nothing at first glance. This place is especially unique. However, if you examine more closely, and you will soon see the astonishment at their building techniques. The Sakai human stone walls were constructed from enormous rocks that can weigh up to 200 tons apiece. Each stone was piled on top of the others on top of each other to create towering walls that are fitted and have every edge trimmed so specifically, it's nearly impossible to think that considering the technological constraints of their time. Professionals believe that more time would have been needed, more than 20,000 individuals to extract these stones from local quarries and conveyance them up the hills for 20 kilometers to the Cusco city. According to some, the Incas may have laboriously hammered. I spent countless hours shaping each pebble, until they obtained the precise shape they required. The whole website is thought of as both historical and architectural marvel. Despite years of study and innumerable efforts to determine how the Incas were able to cut and put together these stone walls, the solution is still a mystery until this day. The Yangshan Quarry's ruins. The Yangshan's ruins come in second, a quarry 20 kilometers or so east of Nanjing, China on Yangmen Shan slopes. The Yangshan Quarry is located on a mountain. This is regarded as one of the most enigmatic locations in China, well known for its enormous blocks of stone. Around 1405 AD, the Ming Emperor's son mandated the building of a massive stele commemoration for the Ming Mausoleum Sholing. He went with the enormous using this quarry's stones for construction materials. But throughout the procedure of chopping the stones and moving them, employees discovered that the blocks they were removing were much too big to ever finish the monument. Finally, the project was shelved, leaving behind enormous boulders with incomplete slashed markings. What still confounds archaeologists are the way of the ancient people thought they could move and cut stone blocks that are more than 70 meters high and heavier, above 30,000 tons. In contrast, the biggest monolith in recorded history is Russia's Thunderstone, which weighs roughly 1,250 tons. Despite the stellar's failure undertaking, numerous enormous stones were still taken out of the quarry. Nobody is certain of how people of that time period achieved this achievement. A few imply that the employees might have been with the help of something unusual. It is particularly noteworthy because even though the ancient Chinese were well known for painstakingly documenting everything, almost no records are left about this enigmatic, incomplete undertaking. The Phaistos disc, an old-school typewriter third, the disc that could be in vintage typewriter. This intricate disc of clay is known as the Phaistos disc, which originated in the middle of 4,000 years ago, during the late Minoan Bronze Age years in the past. This enigmatic relic was found in the Minoan Palace in 1908 of Phaistos, and it has since remained fascinating to academics. The disc-making process itself is a mystery. According to experts, ancient people employed metal molds or stamps to etch symbols onto the outside of the disc. Following the stamping of the designs, the disc was baked on a high temperature, combining the substance with the symbols in combination. This approach was incredibly uncommon, not showing prior until roughly 600 years ago. Thus, the Phaistos disc was far before its time. Every sign on each disc was branded separately, suggesting that more than 200 distinct metal molds possessed to be produced. This has prompted researchers to assume that there had to be further discs made, but not yet a one comparable disc was discovered in the region. Furthermore, there are no metal molds with such odd symbols that have ever been found at the location. Numerous experts continue to doubt the disk's actual goal. According to some, it was an ancient typewriter, yet other people think it includes a poem, song, or other type of custom. The one thing we are certain of says that Crete is where the disk first appeared, and is composed using an adaptation of the old Minoan language dates back to around 1850 up until 1550 BC. But it might be a very long before we are able to fully decode the significance of those enigmatic signs. Ancient flying devices are number 4. Without a doubt, India has been the location of some of the most finest brains for a lengthy time. For instance, Arabella, a mathematician, was the initial using 0 as a sign, and Aerobat is the inventor who developed the currently utilized USB port all over. However, were you aware that possibly the most astounding creation were the flying machines of ancient India called Vimana? Vimanas are frequently referred to as chariots in flight. However, occasionally, they are also imagined as towering mansions in the sky. These amazing inventions are often cited in ancient Sanskrit epics and Hindu scriptures. Numerous literary works describe tales of gods making use of these enigmatic planes to fight evil forces. It is reported that these flying machines experienced a range of distinct characteristics, and the pilots who require operating them require a certain understanding. Certain texts even include fairly detailed guidelines for flying. There are explanations of Vimanas that can move at incredible speeds across a few intervals and even launching lethal attacks. According to reports, some machines were outfitted with devices for recording sound that made it possible for the pilot to listen in on hostile planes. Thus far, none of these historically flying aircraft have been discovered, which has made many people think that the ancient Indians might have once came across entities that had significantly more sophisticated technology than their own, potentially alien beings, or maybe time travelers. The enchanted sunstone, the sunstone of magic, is number 5. The Vikings were renowned for more than just fierce combatants, but they were also referred as outstanding mariners. Lately, scientists found that the Vikings, possibly with the help of a magical stone, were able to disclose the position of the sun irrespective of darkness or cloud cover. We refer to this stone as a solar stone or sunstone in Norse mythology, and it was thought for many years to be just a myth, nothing more. However, in 2010, a gemstone was found in a shipwreck off the coast of the Channel Islands. This sunstone was created of the mineral calcite, which can identify sunshine, even in cloudy or hazy circumstances. Because of the sunstone, the Vikings could use the solar compass and traverse the seas with exceptional precision, even in low light. Today, scientists are able to describe the characteristics behind this rock. However, to residents of the time, the sunstone used to be a genuinely wonderful object. Greek fire's lost treasure. 6th, the misplaced gem of Greek fire's lost treasure. Regarded as one of the most damaging and hazardous weapons ever produced, Greek fire was a very hidden incendiary substance whose formula only a few people knew. This weapon, resembling a flamethrower, was once utilized to defeat the Byzantine Empire even at sea against their adversaries. It was stated that this weapon may even be used underwater, still setting enemies on fire. Not surprisingly, this weapon is recognized as a pivotal contributing element to the Byzantine triumph during naval conflicts. Because of this, the recipe for this lethal drug was exclusively passed down to a select few. Replicating this weapon has been attempted by many. However, nobody has been able to use the same method to replicate Greek fire's horrifying efficacy. Past documents state that the fire caused by this weapon was able to adhere not just to timber, as well as to human flesh, and it was unable to be put out with water, indicating that it became much riskier in a battle at sea. Stranger still, in spite of their adversaries being able to find some of Greek fire's constituents, they were still unable to replicate it exactly. They experimented with different techniques to ascertain its characteristics and production procedure, but none were effective. Contemporary researchers think the secret lay in a liquid with a petroleum basis. But the process for creating Greek fire was never noted. And maybe this secret perished with the collapse of the Byzantine Empire. The historic earthquake sensor, the 7th, is the historic earthquake detector. You may believe that this is just a typical ornamental vase, but it's actually the first earthquake detector in the world. This was a creative force behind the creation. a talented Chinese astronomer named Han, a talented engineer and mathematician. Around 132 AD, Zhang Heng displayed his historic introducing the Han card, an earthquake detector. Not surprisingly, a large number of people at the time were utterly confused on how to use what an odd invention. An earthquake detector is a tool that shows earthquake-induced shocks in the ground. Zhang Heng's apparatus was particularly exceptional because it had the sensitivity to ascertain the direction from which the earthquake caused it. Around the ship, 8 dragon heads were positioned in front of the 8 primary compass directions. Each dragon had a big mouth beneath it, a toad with its jaws open and looking up. As soon as an earthquake occurred, a pendulum within the ship would strike a sphere from placing it into the dragon's mouth, the toad's mouth below. Even if individuals didn't personally experience the earthquake, this innovation might still show the direction of the quake. Because of this, Zhang Heng gave his invention the term earthquake weather vane. During that period, he had no method to demonstrate to others the effectiveness of his device. These days, we may readily earthquake simulation to evaluate such tools. In the past, however, Zhang Heng was viewed with distrust until, in fact, the ball fell. Even so, individuals were more skeptical than before because no earthquake had been felt. Just a few days later, when word leaked out about an enormous earthquake that lasted for hundreds of miles, moving away in the direction that thus, did people at last have faith in his creation? Sadly, not one of Zhang Heng's seismoscope replicas live on today. And even now, we continue to cannot replicate the precise mechanism of that antiquated gadget. The everlasting blade of King Gaojian VIII is King Gaojian's timeless sword. There are numerous legendary figures in history. Swords, but King Gaojian's sword are without a question. Yue is among the most mysterious. Initially, you may expect, this sword is more than 2,500 years old. The blade was made via forging from a bronze tin alloy, 771-year-old up until 476 BC. The majority of similar items, age, and material would have been long since decayed, but King Guang's sword is still as sharp as ever and dazzling with gleam. First, the sword was found in 1965 when a group of archaeologists discovered a tomb in Hubei, China's province. The blade was kept in a wooden container in a moist setting where, according to archaeologists, it should have been severely harmed, yet they were shocked to locate the sword quite precisely kept intact. In addition to maintaining its luster, however, upon sharpness testing, the blade was still able to cut neatly through a stack of 20 pages of paper collectively. Beyond the enigma surrounding its building supplies, historians have discussed for a long time who really owned the sword. Most people concur that this was King Gaojian's prized weapon from Yue, a well-known Chinese monarch. One may argue that this sword was indeed fit for a king such as he is. There are innumerable mysterious innovations from antiquity that even now, we are still unable to explain. Which antiquated technology caught your attention most? Post your ideas in the remarks below. Remember to check out the other amazing videos that are displayed currently on your screen, and I'll see you in the upcoming video. Be careful, everyone.